Now, a recent Israeli strike has claimed the lives of 5 Al Jazeera journalists after their tent was hit near Gaza City's Al-Shifa hospital.
Israeli military confirmed their deaths and said that one of the correspondents, Anas al-Sharif, was posing as a journalist and had links with Hamas. The IDF said that Sharif served as the head of a terrorist cell in the Hamas organization and that he was responsible for advancing rocket attacks against Israeli civilians and military troops.
Now, despite growing criticism over his plan to expand military expansion in Gaza and a demand for a ceasefire, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains defiant. He has laid out a victory plan and claims that about 70 to 75% of the Gaza Strip is already under Israeli military control. He says that the 2 remaining Hamas strongholds will soon be dismantled by the IDF and that Israel will finish the job on a short timetable with or without international support.
I am determined to end the war with our victory, and precisely because I am aware of the great effort of the reservists, I seek to end the war as quickly as possible. Therefore, I have instructed the IDF to reduce the timetable for taking control of Gaza City.
At the United Nations Security Council session on Sunday, UN officials warned that Israel's plan could trigger another calamity. But Israel's ambassador defended the operation, saying the goal is to liberate Gaza from what he called a brutal terror regime, before stating the 5 principles of the expansion plan. Listen to this.
I wish to reiterate the principles, the 5 clear principles that the Israeli Security Cabinet adopted for concluding the war. 1. The disarming of Hamas. 2. The return of all our hostages, both living and deceased. 3. The demilitarization of the Gaza Strip. 4. Israeli security control in the Gaza Strip. 5. The establishment of a non-Israeli peaceful civil administration governed neither by Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority.
The United States defended Israel, saying it has the right to decide what is best for its security and called allegations of genocide in Gaza false.
It is unfortunate that members have again taken advantage of today's meeting to accuse Israel of genocide. These accusations are politically motivated and categorically false. They are part of a deliberate, cynical propaganda campaign as Hamas attempts to win symbolic victories to compensate for total defeat in war. The United States refutes these allegations entirely.
Hamas slammed the Israeli Prime Minister for telling what they called a series of lies. The militant group said that Netanyahu was deceiving and misleading people with his narrative.
Meanwhile, in Athens, thousands of people took to the streets to denounce Israel's war in Gaza. The protesters demanded an immediate ceasefire and an end to what they described as the famine imposed by the murderous state of Israel. They called on the Greek government to end ties with Israel and take a firm stand.
In London, 522 people were arrested recently for supporting the recently banned group Palestine Action.
And for more on this, we are now being joined live by Adrian Calamil. He is a fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute and author of a forthcoming book on Hezbollah. It's a pleasure to have you again on the show.
Thank you, Joseph. Pleasure to be here.
And let's begin. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu has called his plan the best way to end the war. We were obviously looking for a ceasefire, but of course, according to him, this is the best way possible. How do you analyze the Gaza plan that Netanyahu has strongly been supporting and defending?
Great question. I understand his plan, Jyotsna. You can't, Israel cannot allow Hamas. They have to be able to demilitarize Hamas. They need to be able to defeat Hamas on the battlefield and rescue the hostages at the same time. But we have the whole issue with the civilian population in Gaza. And so what we've seen over the course of almost 2 years now, or coming up on 2 years, is just moving people around 140 square mile sandbox and trying to minimize civilian casualties. My hope for this plan would be that Israel would get the civilian population out of there, and then so that the militaries, so that the IDF can square off against Hamas, and then basically press reset on this whole Gaza experiment after the Land for Peace in 2005. We have to remember Hamas took over control of Gaza and then in a civil war ran off the Palestinian Authority and then has governed that territory ever since. So I understand Netanyahu's objectives in any type of confrontation like this. You need not only to defeat your enemy, but you also need to take ground and hold that territory. You can't just take it and then leave it. And you need to build rapport and with the civilians there.
I hear your point, Adrian.
Unfortunately,
I hear your point, Adrian. But and you mentioned it. I just want you to focus a little more on the civilian aspect of the Gaza population. It's over 2 million people. And it's not a small population. They are being displaced. Every few days there is another advisory, move out of here, move out of there. They're moving. And the world has seen those visuals. Where do those people go? And in the midst of this plan that you say that you understand, what happens to the hostages who are still, the few that are still alive?
Yeah, well, one, with the civilian population. And, it's unfortunate that this hasn't been on the table from day one. I think there's just not good communication between Israel and Egypt. But I think an easy solution would have been you can put up something pretty quickly to house civilian populations, make sure they're fed, make sure they're getting the medical treatment that they deserve in the Sinai Peninsula, and guarded and not being threatened until Hamas is defeated, and then they can move in as Gaza is rebuilt. Now, as far as the hostages go, it becomes extremely perilous, and this is the hostages' dilemma here: is when do you outlive your usefulness? I hate to be very cynical and hate this. It sounds ghoulish here, but we've seen a hostage dig in his own grave in a tunnel, and I think a full-scale invasion, and then this is the last card that Hamas has to play with leverage is the hostages, and that means I'm afraid that many of them will likely be executed.
Right, and you mentioned the hostages because this is, of course, one of the goals that the representative of Israel in the UN said that's one of their goals. Unfortunately, he said that it would be dead or alive. We don't know how that would go. But also, I would also like your opinion on how the international community is looking at this, because Germany just halted its arms exports to Israel. France has somehow defended the two-state plan. How do you analyze diplomacy around all of this and West's reaction to this?
And just to add to what Jyotsna said, Netanyahu says he'll do it with or without international support. So can Israel do that? And if you can take that over.
Yeah, I do believe that Israel can do this without the world's support. I think one of the big strategic mistakes that the Israelis have made from the beginning of this campaign is to have it drawn out and it look like this mission creep, so that you have rallies all around the world that are growing in pace and tempo, so that you have these organizations that are organizing, that are funded by groups such as the PFLP, which is a terrorist designated organization. They've been able to mobilize. So the longer this is dragged on, the worse and worse Israel looks in this situation. And then also the reporting that we get out of Gaza, we know is not always factual. So there's always that whole element. So Israel's losing the information war on this. That's quite clear. And as far as diplomacy goes, I think we're at the point where this is a military solution here, and we're going to look for a diplomatic solution afterwards as far as reconstruction and how Gaza is administered.
So military solution first and the diplomatic solution.
Yes, and that being said, I really want your opinion on how the U.S. has been reacting. We have heard Trump say he has criticized on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Now, as reports say, he has dialed Netanyahu. Netanyahu, on the other hand, has made 3 visits to Washington already, perhaps maybe for looking for support. How do you think U.S. will react to this when Trump has already said that, you know, there is a humanitarian crisis there?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and that's one of the difficulties of reading the Trump administration is that you get mixed messaging out of there. You'll have Trump saying one thing one day, and then you'll have Steve Witkoff saying something the other day, saying that he's been fooled by Hamas and there's no real ceasefire proposal that can really be reached with this group, and also the humanitarian issue. It's, I think we really need to take a step back and look at the fact that Hamas is really militarized aid, weaponized aid. This has been done over decades. We've seen this done in Ethiopia. We've seen this done in Somalia. We've seen this done all over the place. And that's what Hamas has done, is they've weaponized the aid by controlling it and then also selling it off to the civilian population at inflated prices.
Messaging remains mixed from the US, but till now we've seen the US eventually stand behind Israel all throughout, and it has been so. History suggests the same. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Always a pleasure speaking with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.